Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus, episode 645, coming to you on the 30th day of May, the year of our Lord, 2024, and the political season takes a pause. Take a deep breath. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, we have runoffs down in Allen yet. Sorry, folks. No, you just thought it was going to be over. We wouldn't be that lucky. No, but seriously, the Republican Party primaries and election cycle is done. It's over with. The state convention is done. It's over with. Let's all take a sigh, a pause, a breath, and realize that today is a new day, and tomorrow will be yet another new day. Life goes on. We're going to continue to do what we need to do. And I want to remind, well, actually, before I get into the day, let me remind you first and foremost, the best way that you can help me make a difference, the best way that we continue to grow the show, be heard, get our message out, continue to build independent media, support independent thought, is to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Follow me on your podcatcher of choice. Join me on the social medias. I am a pro at Gab. Drop in at MeWe. And yes, I still have a page and a group over at Facebook. And for now, apparently, most of my stuff is still up at YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in what is colloquially, oh boy, I butchered that word. Well, referentially considered the negative world. So do not be disappointed. Do not despair. They will look to silence us. They will look to minimize our reach. I can speak to this firsthand at this point, but we can overcome the algorithm. We can do that, and I need your help for that. All right. So we've had our fun, right? Monday, we memorialize those that gave their life in the ultimate sacrifice in what they believed was defense of the country. You could go down a lot of rabbit holes there, a lot of deep, dark trails. We're going to avoid that. Tuesday, we had an election cycle come to a conclusion, and we went in confident, but not sure. Wednesday, we celebrated, right? There were a lot of significant wins. There were a few that were, let's call them, mildly disappointing. And then there were some that hurt, some that stung. That's done. It's over with. Well, we have a situation that we will need to address at some point in the future of the drama that unfolds in SD30. I can't say that I know enough to make a firm declaration of what I would do if I were in the shoes of the state chairman, but it seems to me kind of got handed a bad deal by his predecessor, and there's really not a good answer. But we'll see how it unfolds, and I'm going to withhold my judgment, if you will, until I get more information. And I would strongly suggest check your emotions and consider what else is all at play here. What's important? What is the end goal? All right. It's done. You've all taken a deep breath. Take another 30-second deep breath. All right. Now let's consider what's on the agenda for the rest of the year. Well, we have our general election in November. The general election is the most consequential thing that's going to happen this year because we have to get Ted Cruz across the finish line. I'm fairly certain that Donald will get across all by himself and perhaps even drag Ted across, but we have to do our part. That means if you live in a district where the less good candidate won, the one that you opposed won, then I'm asking you, please, set aside your differences. Set aside your disappointment. Lick your wounds. Let it heal. You've got about 5 months. 5 months, you should be able to get over this and go in, and if you need to, hold your nose and pull the lever for the guy that's the least bad one on the ballot. I mean, that's what I've been doing for years, right? You fight the good fight, you do the best you can in the primary, and if you come up short, you accept that you have to choose between the stupid party and the evil party. And I, for one, cannot vote for the evil party, so that leaves me, yes, in the Republican Party. We got to take what we can get. Now, there are lots of good signs. We have opportunities. We need to continue to work with them. We need to exploit the opportunities such as they are, but we need to remember that the person that won is more than likely not our enemy. Now, look, I know there's a lot of haters on Brent Hagenbaugh, and quite frankly, he deserves 99.5% of it. From what I know, he was a bad chairman of the Democrat county. Boy, talk about a Freudian slip. A bad chairman of the Denton County Republican Party. He also donated to Democrats, and he doesn't even live in the district that he ran for and won. But guess what? He's going to be better than whoever the Democrat opponent is. Now, he might be a Democrat light, or he might just be a bad Republican, but he's not a full-on socialist, leftist, progressive, right? Suck it up, guys. It sucks. It really does. But we got to do it. It's a necessary thing. Part of moving on is accepting that you didn't get everything that you wanted. You have to deal with the reality as it is. And honestly, it's disappointing. I mean, when I was a younger man and I subscribed more firmly to the libertarian values that I generally still hold, but just I struggle dealing with the realities. I could see it in front of my face, and it just it would eat you up if you let it, but you can't. You can't. You got to do more. And as much as I can philosophically wrap my head around pretty much every libertarian ideal, they just fail on 2 points. And here I am. I'm a Republican. I'm a Liberty Republican. I do everything I can to help the party, knowing full well that they actively oppose several things that are important to me. I know full well they're never going to deliver on a non-interventionist foreign policy. I know full well they will never, ever give up the handouts to corporate giants. The corporate welfare is baked into the pie. But here's the thing. The Democrats are so much worse. It used to be back in the day, you could argue that the Democrats were good on a couple of issues. The Republicans were good on most of the other ones. And as a libertarian, you would look at and say, well, I can at least tolerate the Republicans. I believe all that's true. And I think Trump had the best punchline that I've heard in quite some time. Well, do you want to win or do you want to keep your 3%? I mean, a seat at the table is better than nothing, right? Now, granted, nobody wants the scraps. Nobody wants to sit at the junior table, or as they refer to it in my family, the weenie chair, right? Nobody wants to be cast aside, but that always is the case. It's just understood. That's how things work. You don't have to like it. You just have to accept it. It's the world we live in. Now, that doesn't mean you quit fighting. It doesn't mean you don't push. It doesn't mean you don't speak to what's important to you. It doesn't mean that you don't hold the line. It just means that you accept the world that you're in. The world that I live in, Collin County, right? McKinney, Texas, the Republicans, or at least the Republicans in name, they run everything. Everybody's a Republican. And even the Democrats pose as Republicans because, quite frankly, all the action is in the Republican primary. All the action is with a bunch of people that have an R after the name. The challenge is a great number of these people don't actually believe a thing that we believe. That they want power for power's sake. They want to manipulate events to benefit them and their friends. And again, that's baked in. You know it's there. Just accept it. It's part of the world we live in. It's reality as it is. But it doesn't mean you just accept it to the extent that you do nothing. It doesn't mean that you sit there in absolute silence. No. You look for the things that are affecting you and which things are set up to be detrimental to you. So now that the election is over, right, that the primaries are done, I want to speak to an issue that I've only hinted at in the past. I mentioned somebody's fascination with the rear end of a candidate, right? Kept referring to the back door. Well, I mean, how many songs have you listened to where that has an entirely different meaning? So some guy's fascination with calling somebody else back door, I really wonder and worry about them more so than the candidate or the elected official or the person that they're labeling as that. So I wouldn't say I have any special knowledge. I wouldn't say I know anything, super insightful. I will say that I'm closer to some of the individuals than perhaps my listeners are. And I want you to consider, I want you to just set aside all your preconceived notions. I want you to just check out and look at this purely from a 5,000 or 10,000 foot view and a clearly objective outcome here. You've got a guy that has given most of his adult life in service to the party in one way or the other. And look, I know some of this is duplicative, but I feel it's important that we start here. So please bear with me. He's dedicated most of his adult life to the party, to the ideals, to the values of what the Republican Party espouses. Maybe not what the elected officials do, but what the party espouses. He believes it in his heart, in his soul. He's been working towards a goal for most of his life. He had this retirement plan, if you will. I'm going to go into politics and I'm going to do this. Now, we used to look at people that did this. They worked their whole life. They made a nest egg, or they got to a successful point, and then they decided, I'm going to spend the rest of my days in service to others. That was always looked at and a good view, right? A good way of looking at it. Well, this gentleman that I'm referring to came to a crisis, right? His health had deteriorated. And again, I'm not going to get into details. It's not my story to tell. But he realized he would not be able to do what he had intended on doing, that his plan had changed. And surely he must have thought to himself, I can't have come this far. I can't have set up the party to do great things and then walk away and just leave it rudderless. I wouldn't be doing anybody any favors to invest all this time and effort. And look, there's lots of other people that have been doing this, but this guy was in the captain's seat at the moment, right? He had an opportunity and an obligation to protect the party and do what he felt was best. And I have no doubt in my mind that he reached out to a number of people and he said, look, I'm in a situation here. Would you consider doing this? You're on my short list. I need somebody that can step up and can fulfill this role. Somebody that I know, somebody that I trust, somebody that has a positive track record, somebody that's done the work. Surely he spent that time. I know he did. But surely you can see that. Surely you can think about how that might have played out in his head. And finally he settled on a candidate, somebody that said, well, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I'm willing to step up. I'm willing to take that on. I'll take that mantle. And they said, but look, there's lots of issues. There's lots of strife. We have to deal with the factionalism. We have to deal with, people that are unhappy, some for legitimate reasons and some for less than legitimate reasons. But we have to navigate these waters. We have to be careful. I want to do this in such a way as to make the handoff, the exchange, as seamless as possible, with as much confidence as possible, without hiccups and problems. We don't want to add to our issues here. How do we do this? Now, at this point, I can see where there's this transition, there's a handing off of the baton, and they think, well, surely we don't want to advertise this. We don't want to bring attention. There are literally wolves outside the door, the Democrats, in case that's not clear. And then we have jackals within the doors. Use your own imagination here. These are people that have their own ends in mind. They have their own demands, and they are not in line with what our goals are, what the long-term prospects are. They're not looking to create a team. They're looking to create a fiefdom. Now, just a little pause to insert here. Fiefdoms aren't always the worst thing, but when you have a king or a prince, you want one that is benevolent, right? The benevolent dictator of Hobbes's world. If you're going to have one, that's what you want. You don't want a tyrant. You don't want the person that is top down and doesn't listen to anything and just mandates by force. My concern is that's what you're going to get more often than not. Okay, and insert. So we're looking at a situation where there's this handoff, and it has to be done carefully. We don't want to stir up the pot. We don't want to look weak. We don't want to invite problems. But you make a mistake. And you run into a race. And the race turns into a three-way race. And then it turns into a runoff. And you're dealing with all this as we're trying to protect the party. We're trying to do what we think is best for the party. Nobody's saying that people can't and shouldn't be involved. Nobody's saying that you're disallowed and we don't care. It's just we're looking at the bigger picture here, folks. Trust us this one more time. The man that had devoted most of his adult life felt confident that he made the right decision as it pushed forward this. Now, did they do it perfectly? Well, maybe not. Did they make an error? Maybe. In retrospect, how would you have done it differently? Sure, all those questions are legitimate and fair. But when you fight these things out on a daily basis on the social medias, when you run your own party into the ground because you think that you need to be in charge, that you know what's best, that people that have been at this far longer than you, people that have sacrificed far more than you, they don't know anything. We need to dismiss all that they've done. And then you go and you draft people. Nothing wrong with them. They were willing to throw their hat in the ring. And that's all well and good. But again, consider, what is the outcome here? What is it you're trying to do? My concern is, I'm sitting here, let's say I'm on the quarterdeck, maybe not up on the bridge, but on the quarterdeck, and I'm wondering what's going on here. How are we going to protect the ship, in my metaphor? Are we going to avoid the stormy weather? Well, no, we ran right through it. Well, we got to batten down the hatches. We got to protect stuff. We got to open up those repair lockers, make sure we have everything handy, and we got to make sure we've got the best captain at the wheel or the best officer of the deck at the wheel, and make sure that we're ready and prepared for the storm that is brewing in front of us. And the ship that is the Republican Party of Collin County, we navigated through this mess. We have a clear winner and a clear decision. Now, hopefully, we can remember that and move forward. Nobody's been thrown overboard yet. Nobody really wants to throw anybody overboard. Maybe. But we have to remember that we have a job. We have a duty. We have a party to protect. We have a party that has a job to do. Our overwhelming responsibility is to recruit and train and improve our presence in the county. But when you spend all your time attacking and beating up and wearing down the people that are on your very same team, one has to question whether or not you're a net positive for the party. One has to question whether or not we really need somebody that's trying to scuttle the ship while we're going through a storm. We have to look at perhaps we have sappers in our midst. Perhaps we have people that are so concerned about having their own way that they'd rather sink the ship if they can't be the captain. And yes, I know this isn't a perfect metaphor. Please carry along your negative responses to the end here. Follow along, please. And now that we're through this, and now that we're looking forward, We have to decide, are we going to line up? Are we going to work together? If this is a sailing ship, we'd have to consider, do our sails overlap or do they work together? Or are they opposing each other? These are not necessarily the best things. I mean, we have to be aligned. We have to be on the same page. Now, look, I'll be the first guy to say I'm used to being in a room where I'm the odd man out on certain political positions. You know what? That doesn't bother me. It doesn't fluster me. I'm perfectly okay with that. Because I'm confident of who I am and what I stand for. And I'm also willing to work for things that are attainable. Things that help us, that protect liberty, that make a difference right here in the world that we live in the existence of the reality that is here. And I don't worry about those little esoteric differences or the fantastical improvements that maybe can happen in 20 years. I worry about what happens tomorrow. I worry about how do I make a difference right here and now. And as we've made it through this calamity and we're considering what's next, as I pause for dramatic effect, the storms that we've gone through were just a squall. We are getting ready to go into a hurricane. Not just any old hurricane, but a massive hurricane. You see, 2024, everything that was wrong with 2020 is still there. And all the drama of 2016 is going to be piled on top of it. And we're going to have to navigate that, and we're going to have to pick our battles. We're going to have to be decisive. We're going to have to be lean. We're going to have to be willing to fight, but not amongst each other. No, we have to fight off the waves, fight off the wind, fight off the pirates, whatever. Follow my analogy here. We are on the same ship. We have the same goal. We're all on a mission. Set aside whatever minor political differences you have, whatever religious affiliation that maybe chaps your hide. You have to set that on the back burner and focus on what's right in front of you. And I'm here to tell you that if we can't get our act together, if we can't pool our resources, if we can't make a change of attitude and focus on the enemy that is in our midst and deal with that first and foremost, and then go forth and deal with the wolves, we're in trouble. See, I just changed the metaphor again. If we can't deal with the sappers, if we can't deal with the gold bricks on our ship, we're never going to be able to fight off the pirates. You can't allow these folks to have their temper tantrum and scuttle the ship while you're in the midst of fighting a battle. And that's what we're dealing with. Whether we want to talk about it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, there are many times and many things that I've backburnered or taken it off the consideration. We're not worried about these issues now. We need to focus on this. I need everyone else to be willing to do that. We're on a team. Focus on the end goal. Focus on achieving the port. Now, sadly, a lot of people believe that Trump's going to come in and save us all, that Trump's going to make all the difference in the world, and the game is all over and we have won if we get Trump reelected. Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. I guess technically at this point it's 5 months. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 months. I'm not super confident of anything. But what I am certain of is we're in the storm. We're in the hurricane. It may not start until August. But it's imminent. The storm clouds are in front of us. We can't avoid it. We're going right into it. And the question is, what are you going to do? Are you going to be down there bailing water? Are you going to hold on to the... I can't think of the right word. Are you going to hold on to the wheel to hold the rudder in place so that we can maintain our course? I mean, if we had engines available, are you willing to go down there and shovel the coal or turn the oil, pump the oil? Are you willing to do what it's necessary to get us through the storm? Are you willing to quit bickering and fighting over things that are largely meaningless? Are you willing to set aside these temporary scuffles and quit scuttling the ship to focus on the goal. And we have to be in working order. We have to be in fighting shape. We have to be, quote unquote, ship shape once we get to this hurricane and get through the hurricane, because guess what? We're going to have more battles that follow. We're going to have more storms that follow. And if we're not prepared to do what it's needed to be done in order to defend the ship, we're toast. We're going to lose. We're going to sink. We're going to cast ashore. Choose your own simile. None of this is possible if you're not willing to accept the reality that we live in, the reality of what is now. The die has been cast. Quit fighting the battle from yesterday. Focus on what's in front of you today. You know, I try. I really do. I guess that's kind of the end of the story here, right? The danger that is ahead. I really do, to put aside petty differences. I try to let things go. Look, barbs thrown, things said, things implied. I do my best to just let it roll off of me, because at the end of the day, it's not that important. Defending liberty is important. Defending Texas is important. Defending my family is important. Getting my way on some committee, not super important. Achieving some temporary assignment, not that important. Making sure I'm properly armed, making sure that I'm properly covered, properly supplied. Those are far more important things in a battle than what the rank is on my sleeve. They're far more important than who my general is. Or let's say captain. The generals matter, the captains less so. If you're going to be a leader, you need to lead. You have to make sure you're on the right team. You got to make sure you're following the direction, that you're working towards the same goal. And you can't be petty. You can't be spiteful. And that's the challenge, isn't it? Right? Because there's a whole lot of people that lose every day. There's a lot of people that come up short. And they got to let it go. You know, there's a number of candidates that fell short of their goal. There's a number of their workers that are extremely let down. There's a number of supporters out there that aren't happy that their preferred candidate won. But I'm here to tell you, you need to be the loyal opposition. You need to say, yeah, that wasn't what I wanted, but I'm okay, and we're going to work together to get this next thing done. You need to put aside that difference and focus. Focus on what's coming. The foreseeable future is fraught with danger. And if we're constantly checking our six to make sure the people on our team actually have our back, we're not going to get anywhere. If I'm constantly worried about the guy in the foxhole or on the oar or holding the lanyard, if I'm constantly having to check that, I can't be very effective at what I'm doing now, can I? Yes, my metaphors are not spot on today. I hear that. We have to come to an agreement that we're going to set aside the petty differences and fight the good fight. I do my best to lead by example. I can't say I've never gotten flustered. I can't say I've never gotten angry. I can't say I've never misspoke or talked poorly to somebody else, but I always focus on the principle. I always focus on the policy. I try my darndest to never let it get personal. I can't say the same for everybody I know. I can say that typically when emotions get involved, people make bad decisions. And in case you think I'm pointing fingers, I'm looking in the mirror when I say that. You got to check those emotions. You got to check the preferences. You got to focus on the principle. You got to focus on what the outcome is that you want. And we have to remember, take a breath. One battle is done. You've got a break. Enjoy it. Regroup. Resupply. take your breath. The next thing coming is almost here. We need to be prepared. We need to understand who is in fact with us and who is not. But you also have to be willing to understand that most of the people that are with us are our allies. Allies have similar goals, similar objectives, but not necessarily exactly the same. They're not your family, they're your allies. And sadly, a whole lot of people think that my ally is my enemy, that my ally is working against me. No. Your allies are your allies, your family is your family. And if you can't distinguish your family from your allies, that's your problem. I have a couple of guys that I would consider family. I have a couple more guys that I would consider extremely good allies. I would almost say family. And I have a whole lot of other people that are just allies. We work together. We have similar goals. I don't dislike them. They're not my best friend, but we're going to work together. And I really, really need for you all to understand that when I was in the Navy, everybody was my shipmate. It was our ship. We protected it. We worked together. We didn't have to be best friends. We didn't have to go out, and have lunches on the weekend. We didn't have to do anything, but we had to work well together. We had to form up our teams and make the best of it. We had to follow the orders that were legal and proper. We had to perform to the best of our ability. And we had to remember the guy on the other side of the ship, he's still your shipmate. He's not your enemy. Now you can talk smack, you can give him a little grief, but at the end of the day, that's your shipmate. Somebody comes on your ship and they start talking smack or go after your people, you defend them. That's my shipmate. I don't know why it's such a struggle. Maybe it's just the civilian thing. I'm certain the gang folks get it. I'm certain the other soldiers get it. God knows the Marines get it. And then maybe even those guys with their joysticks and their comfy chairs in the Air Force get it. But my gosh, we haven't done a very good job of modeling that if the rest of those folks that are with us don't get it. We got a lot of work to do, folks. We got to quit fighting amongst ourselves and realize that that's your shipmate and you need to move on. Get back on mission. And now that I've muddled up this narrative and I've given you multiple metaphors, I'm just hoping that some of the ideas that I threw out here stick and they make sense and that you're willing to take that to heart and do something about it. Take your breath and we move on. And with that, this has been According to Kells. This has been episode 645. And I'll be back tomorrow for a Friday show. And then I will see you on the other side.